Hey guys, so today we are going to talk about chapter 27 of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So I'll be reading pages 129 to 131 and you will finish up the chapter. So starting right here, Mike TV is sent by television. Mike TV was even more excited than Grandpa Joe at seeing a bar of chocolate being sent by television. But Mr. Wonka, he shouted, can you send other things through the air in the same way? Breakfast cereal, for instance? Oh, my sainted aunt, cried Mr. Wonka. Don't mention that disgusting stuff in front of me. Do you know what breakfast cereal is made out of? It's made of all those little curly wooden shavings you find in pencil sharpeners. But could you send it by television if you wanted to, as you do chocolate? Asked Mike TV. Of course I could. And what about people? Asked Mike TV. Could you send a real live person from one place to another in the same way? A person, cried Mr. Wonka. Are you off your rocker? But could it be done? Good heavens, child, I really don't know. I suppose it could. Yes, I'm pretty sure it could. Of course it could. I wouldn't like to risk it, though. It might have some very nasty results. But Mike TV was already off and running the moment he heard Mr. Wonka saying, I'm pretty sure it could. Of course it could. He turned away and started running as fast as he could towards the other end of the room where the great camera was standing. Look at me, he shouted as he ran. I'm going to be the first person in the world to be sent by television. No, 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 cried Mr. Wonka. Mike, screamed Mrs. TV, stop, come back, you'll be turned into a million tiny pieces. But there was no stopping Mike TV now. The crazy boy rushed on, and when he reached the enormous camera, he jumped straight for the switch, scattering Oompa Loompas right and left as he went. See you later, alligator, he shouted, and he pulled down the switch, and as he did so, he leaped out into the full glare of the mighty lens. There was a blinding flash. Then there was silence. Then Mrs. TV ran forward, but she stopped dead in the middle of the room, and she stood there. She stood staring at the place where her son had been, and her great red mouth opened wide, and she screamed, He's gone! He's gone! Great heavens, he has gone! Shouted Mr. TV. Mr. Wonka hurried forward and placed a hand gently on Mrs. TV's shoulder. We shall have to hope for the best, he said. We must pray that your little boy will come out unharmed at the other end. Mike, screamed Mrs. TV, clasping her head in her hands. Where are you? I'll tell you where he is, said Mr. TV. He's whizzing around above our heads in a million tiny pieces. Don't talk about it, wailed Mrs. TV. We must watch the television set, said Mr. Wonka. He may come through at any moment. Mr. and Mrs. TV and Grandpa Joe and little Charlie and Mr. Wonka all gathered round the television and stared tensely at the screen. The screen was quite blank. He's taking a heck of a long time to come across, said Mr. TV, wiping his brow. Okay, so if we look at our questions, number one said, why was Mike TV more excited than Grandpa Joe when he saw a chocolate bar sent through the television? Well, if we look back at the chapter, at the beginning, it tells us right here that Mike TV was even, that Mike TV was even more excited than Grandpa Joe at seeing the bar of chocolate being sent by television. And that sentence is telling us a lot because we know that Mike TV has a little bit of a problem with television sets, right? And right down here, he says, but could you send it by television if you wanted to, as you do chocolate? So he's really interested in TV because he's just so obsessed with TV. I don't think Grandpa Joe is as obsessed with TV as Mike TV is. So if we look at the best answers, A, Mike thinks the television is haunted. We didn't see that in the text. B, he loves to watch television. Well, we know that's a big characteristic of him. So that could be it. C, Grandpa Joe had never seen a television. That I don't think is true. I think that they used to watch TV, but I just don't know if Grandpa Joe was as obsessed with it as Mike was. And D, Mike has never seen a television. Well, we know that's not true because that's pretty much all he does every day. So our best answer here is B. And number two, what caused Mrs. TV to wail? So we need to look back in the chapter for when she's wailing. So most of the time she seems to be pretty upset about it, but here she's screaming, so she's not wailing. We need to look for when she's wailing. So she screams right here, and then, right here, she says, don't talk about it, wailed Mrs. TV. So don't talk about what? Okay, well, let's go back to what her husband just said to her, which is, I'll tell you where he is. He's whizzing above our heads in a million pieces, and that made her wail. So the fact that he's above their heads in a million pieces. So A, Mike whizzing around in a million tiny pieces. That's about why she wailed. B, the chocolate bar going through the television, C, Mike asking to watch television in the chocolate factory, or D, Mr. Wonka telling him no. So our best answer here would be A, Mike whizzing around in a million tiny pieces. This is what really caused her to wail. You're going to finish the rest of the chapter 27, and do the rest of the quiz.